everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about What If We Broke the Rules by TARA GRACE ERICSON. So, this one, it's a contemporary romance. It fits within the Christian fiction category, and it's book one in the Heart of Nashville series, which is a multi author series. So, why did I want to read this one? Well, I've enjoyed reading books from Tara in the past, including The One Who Got Away and Dancing with Dandelion and Believing the Hero. And you can find recommendations for those books at my blog, at my website at narelleatkins.com. Now, I was very excited to see this series, and I've pre-ordered all 6 books in the series, and I'm looking forward to them landing in my Kindle. So let's talk about the book. What If We Broke the Rules by Tara Grace Ericson is set in Nashville, Tennessee. And we have a number of romance tropes in this one. So it's a sports romance, and we have a hockey hero. We have our characters from different worlds because he's a celebrity and she's an ordinary person. He also has a bad boy reputation, which definitely complicates things. And we have forced proximity where they end up working together because she's a physical therapist. And we have forbidden romance because there's contractual arrangements that mean that these two are not allowed to get romantically involved during work hours or while she's treating him as her patient. And of course, being a celebrity story, there's no secret she can keep when people are very much paying attention to what he's up to. And we have a lovely ensemble cast of characters, a friends group, and they meet at this cafe. And I'll get to that in a minute because that's a really fun part of the story. So I'm going to share the first line with you, which is this one. Pierce Schumacher had played through a broken nose, a separated shoulder, and what was probably a concussion. And that is a big ouch. All those injuries just sound horrendous. So we're in chapter 1 where we meet Pierce, and he's playing a hockey game, and he plays for Nashville, which is where he lives and works. So being a contact sport, there's always injury risks when it comes to contact sports, which we will learn about soon. So I'll introduce you to Pierce. So he's in his mid-20s and he's a pro hockey player in Nashville. And it's mid-season, and so they're obviously trying to win every game to get into the playoffs. And basically, hockey is his life and his identity, and he lives and breathes hockey, and he can't imagine what his life would look like if he wasn't a pro hockey player. So I'm going to introduce you to Lindsay. So she's also in her mid-20s, and she's a physical therapist, or what we would call a physio in Australia. And so the sports clinic where she works has a corporate contract with the Nashville hockey team. And Lindsay's workload at the start of the story becomes absolutely insane because they're temporarily short-staffed. And the other thing that we learn about Lindsay pretty early on is that she loves her rules. Her rules bring her comfort and bring order to her life. And her number one rule is don't get involved with athletes. So as soon as you see that, you know there's going to be some hijinks and some trouble in this story. So the meet cute between Pierce and Lindsay, it's high stress and it's very awkward and very interesting, and it sets up some interesting dynamics. So we have Pierce, who's been playing a hockey game in chapter 1, and he's injured and he's pushing himself, which will be to his detriment. And he's in pain and he's not in a good place. And so he makes a very bad first impression on Lindsay because she's the PT that's there at the game that's in charge of looking after any of the players if there's any injury concerns. So she's on duty and working. And Lindsay's also cool, calm, and collected, and she's a professional, and she doesn't put up with nonsense. And so she calls a spade, and he's used to being able to charm all the women that come into his life, and she appears to be immune to his charms. And not only that, she'll call him out. So I just love the meet cute. It was just so fun watching these two managing each other and the sparks of attraction that are also flying around that they're both handling in different ways. And so we have a number of problems in the story. Obviously, the big problem is Pierce's injury, which has massive ramifications and totally rocks his world. And he's also dealing with the fact that his poor choices, and that's pushing and pushing and pushing to play on rather than listening to his body has actually made the injury worse and will make the recovery time longer. So he's got a lot going on mentally and emotionally as well as physically because he needs to do the work to recover from this injury and get back on the ice. And that rehab work will be with Lindsay. So Pierce is from Arkansas, and his parents have really sacrificed a lot to get him to the place where he is. They were driving to Memphis so when he was younger so he could practice hockey, etc., etc. And he has a very complicated relationship with his father that he'll also be unpacking in the story as well. And Lindsay, she just does not want Pierce to be her patient at all. She's got this insane workload. She's feeling overwhelmed. There's just so much happening and it's all falling on her. And she's got a very unsupportive and toxic work colleague that really doesn't help the situation, who kind of, those mean girls that kind of enjoy watching other people suffer. And this mean girl has quite a cruel streak to her as well. So Lindsay's not in a place where she's surrounded by supportive people at work, which really doesn't help with all the stress she's under. And Lindsay's also carrying some emotional baggage, as you probably guessed from rule number 1 that she has in terms of don't date athletes. And she dated an athlete in college and it ended badly, and she still really hasn't got over what happened back then, and that's something that she'll have to look at during the story. So I absolutely love this story. It was so fun. It was a really easy read, feel good romance. I just really enjoyed it. And the romance was just so cute and sweet and had all the elements that I just love. And the forced proximity with Lindsay being his physical therapist and him being sidelined and injured, it was just lovely to watch the friendship that started to form between these two as they're trying to manage the attraction that's also going on at the same time. Because obviously it's a physical thing, her job. So she's touching him in a very professional way, but that also complicates things. And what I really loved was their working relationship was very respectful and very realistic. And that's about all I'll say, because obviously none of our characters are perfect and they will make decisions that they might think twice about later. So there's some things that happen in the story, but at the end of the day, I appreciated how Pierce was. The bottom line was that he was very respectful towards Lindsay and her job, and I just love that in the story. So he was really stubborn and just really determined to do the work to get well, and he was very much a professional athlete in terms of his attitude for the recovery from the injury. And Lindsay, she's overcoming trust issues, and she's really learning that she really needs to ask for help and not just keep taking on all the burdens that come her way and just grit her teeth and bearing it, that sometimes things can be a bit overwhelming and sometimes she needs to lean on other people to help her, which is a bit of a learning curve for her as well. And another thing I loved is that there wasn't too much hockey for me. So as if you listen to a few of my episodes, you'll know that I'm not a mad keen hockey fan. We really don't have ice hockey in Australia. We don't have winter like you have in the northern part of America and Canada. So hockey is really not a thing here. So when I'm reading stories with hockey plays, I'm really not necessarily following what's going on. But that's fine because the hockey wasn't a major part of the story and it definitely didn't stop me from enjoying the story. And another thing I liked was the Nashville music scene. So we're going to have some music things happening later in the series, which I thought was really fun how that was foreshadowed in this book. And the Friends group and Melody's Cafe. I just love this Friends group, and it's a really delightful, quirky group of side characters, and they're going to be the future main characters in the books coming up in the series, which I just love. So we meet Lindsay's roomie, Neve, and she manages Melody's Cafe, and she'll be the leading lady in book 6, which is Jessica Wakefield's book. And we also meet Lindsay's brother, Danny, and he will be the hero in book 2 in the series, the next one by Elizabeth Madry. And we meet at least one hero or heroine from every book in the series in this one as well. And I love the way these characters were introduced and we got to see what was going on with the friends and how that all worked. It was just really fun. And I would say with this one that you definitely want to read in order if you're planning to read the whole series, because the first book will really set up the relationships and then there'll be new people coming along as the series progressed. And I think you would have a more fruitful experience reading the books if you do read them in order. But that said, you could definitely read this one as a standalone without any problems. It's a complete standalone romance. So I have some favorite book quotes. So normally I make lots of notes in my Kindle if I'm reading an ebook, or on the iPad if I'm using an app there, or I take lots of photos if I'm reading a paperback. And so I usually have at least 3 to 4 ideas for a favorite book quote. Sometimes I'll have half a dozen, but in this particular book, I had 11. So there was a lot of really interesting quotes that I had to choose from. So I've got two for you that I've chosen, and this is the first one. He'd never known anyone who treated prayer like it was as normal as breathing. And the context for this quote is this is Pierce who's thinking this, and we're in his faith journey. I just loved his faith journey in the story. And he actually is watching Lindsay, and she's at work, and he sees her in a private moment where she doesn't realize she's being watched, where he can watch her lips moving, and he's watching her pray, and he's really intrigued by that and starts asking her questions. And it was just a really interesting scene in the book that I just loved as we actually got to see what was going on with Pierce in his faith journey. And he's got players. The captain of the team is a man of faith as well. So he knew that there were players that had pre-game rituals and praying and different things. But when he meets Lindsay, that really sort of brings that into focus in terms of what it would mean to have a relationship with God as well. So my second book quote that I chose is this one. And maybe grace means trusting that God can work with complicated, messy things better than we can. So this is Lindsay's mum who's talking to her and says this, and they're talking about some stuff that's going on in Lindsay's life that I'm not going to share with you because that would spoil the story. But it was really interesting to see some of these conversations that were going on because the characters in the story really do live their faith. And I would describe this one as having strong and relevant faith elements precisely for that reason. And the friend group, we actually see them praying for each other and praying with each other, and I just really love that sense of Christian community that we actually have in the story. And as I said, Pierce is definitely on a faith journey in the story and has some things to learn and some issues to untangle and some decisions to make. And Lindsay, at the same time, she has her faith challenge as well in different ways. And she's dealing with trust issues, and that's something that she needs to work on and overcome as well. And the story also includes forgiveness themes and looks at the importance of grace, and particularly in the context of characters that are struggling with feeling shame, and how if you can extend grace and give yourself grace, and that means that you can actually deal with shameful situations, you can repent, etc., etc. So all that kind of stuff was explored in the story. So in terms of the impact on me, there were lots of smiles because this is a really fun story that I really enjoyed. It's light-hearted romance, easy reading, feel good, and it was just a pleasure to spend time with these characters in the story. And at the same time, there were a couple of poignant moments, nothing too poignant, no tears or anything like that, but in stories, there's always things that go wrong. And so Pierce's injury was definitely one point in the story where there were some things happening. And we also have the characters dealing with some emotional baggage in the story at different times as well, that those situations also did make me think too. So, in summary, I would recommend this book to readers who like sports romances, and particularly the hockey hero who's a celebrity, and to readers who like the bad boy reputation hero who everyone thinks is a bad boy, but maybe he's not really a bad boy. And if they like characters from different worlds because of the celebrity thing, and if you like your romances with forced proximity with your characters that are in a work situation together, and if you like the Friends group with the ensemble cast of delightful side characters, you'll like this one. And if you like your contemporary romances set in Nashville, where you get a taste of the music scene there as well, you'll like this one. And if you like multi-author series where you've got connected characters in the same story world with strong faith elements that include trust and forgiveness themes, then you'll like this one too. Thanks for joining me today. Does What If We Broke the Rules sound like a book that you'd like to read? Have you read it? What did you think? you can let me know. If you're listening at the podcast, you can send me a text via a link at the show notes. If you're watching at YouTube, you can like the episode at YouTube and or leave a comment at YouTube. You can also email me at my website where I have a contact form, and you'll find that at narelleatkins.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. And you can do that at your favorite podcasting app, or you can subscribe at YouTube, and then you'll get a notification on when my next episode drops. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the link with a friend, especially a friend who enjoys reading contemporary Christian romance and a friend who likes reading contemporary Christian romances that are in a lovely multi-author series of connected characters in the same story world. And also a friend who would enjoy reading Tara's books. And she writes contemporary romance, and she also writes romantic suspense. So thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.